Hey you, it's me. Let's talk about something a little different and a little more personal. Pretty soon, it'll be my 1-year anniversary at my company, so I wanted to take this time to reflect and look back at my first year as a software engineer. I don't have the traditional background of going to college and getting a computer science degree. I actually had to attend 2 different coding boot camps before I was able to land a job. But I'll go into more detail about that experience in another video. Today, I wanted to talk about all the things that I learned and opportunities that I've received in the last year. I was a little nervous to start my first week, but I was mostly just really excited to become an official software engineer. There were so many things that were brand new to me, and some of them I did receive explanations on, but a lot of them I just had to figure out along the way. The first thing I had to get used to was Jira. If you don't know what Jira is, it's a way to track what you're currently working on. You can also define what needs to be done in big or small chunks, and you can point your stories to reflect how much work it'll take to be completed. We do have daily stand-ups and 2-week sprints, which were concepts I was familiar with because of one of my boot camps. But something that I wasn't familiar with was a thing called Sprint Retro, which is at the end of your 2-week sprint, you talk about all the things that did go well or didn't go well. You're able to highlight where things could be improved or call out wins that an individual or the team had. And then my first few tickets that I actually got assigned on Jira were super overwhelming to me. My company's codebase has been a monolith for a very long time. And a monolith is basically when everything lives inside the same codebase and repository. When you're working with smaller projects, this is no big deal. And in fact, you've probably built a monolith yourself without even realizing it. But as the size and complexity grows of a project, this becomes more bloated and convoluted, and it really is difficult to come up to speed as a new person. That was definitely my issue. It was so hard to visualize the structure of everything and imagine how everything interacted with each other, so I ended up taking a lot of notes. Lots and lots of notes. Those notes came in handy. Any meeting I attended, I would write down any questions I had or anything that sounded important. I would also write down everything that I did in that day, so during the next day's stand-up, I didn't forget anything. These notes are still really useful to me. There's been so many times where someone asked a question about something that was mentioned weeks ago, and I happened to have it written down. Or I had spent some time figuring out the steps for a problem, I wrote down the steps, and then later when I came across that problem again, I didn't have to waste my time figuring it out. I had the answer right in front of me. If you've never worked on a shared GitHub repo before, then you might be unfamiliar with a pull request and reviewing them. Before the code can be merged into the main codebase, it needs to be reviewed and approved. At my company, anyone can review anyone else's code. This is great because it means you have a bunch of people with different backgrounds giving you feedback. Obviously, you want to leave them a description, the link to the Jira ticket, and test steps if there are any. But because they might not have been there when this code was fully explained in depth, if they're able to read your code, understand it, and run it, then you wrote some pretty good quality code. And in addition to having people outside my team review my code, I can review other people's code as well. This is great because it means that I get to see different parts of my company's code base that my team doesn't work on. This is a great learning experience, and it only solidifies my understanding of the bigger picture. I'll ask a ton of questions on my reviews, or if there's something that I've never seen before and I think is really cool, I'll call it out. And people also call out things on my PRs. I think when I first started, I felt kind of embarrassed if I got too many comments on a PR. I felt like I was letting the reviewer down by making mistakes. But I'm pretty much over that by now. I really appreciate the opportunity to learn something new. And that's how you grow as a developer. When someone points out something that can be optimized, you implement a better solution. The one thing that I can't really do though is I can't just approve anyone's PR because a lot of the time I don't have enough knowledge in that specific context to say this is high quality code, we can merge it in without there being any issues. There are exceptions to this, like if it's something similar to what I've been working on, then I do understand the adopted standard and I can hold another person's PR up to that standard. In that case, it would be reasonable for me to approve something. My company has a big emphasis on pairing. So because we're remote, that means one of us drives and the other one kind of talks them through the problem. I've definitely seen this practice get a lot of criticism on places like Reddit, where their main issue is that it slows down one developer. But honestly, this practice has been so beneficial to me. It's great to see how someone more experienced thinks through a problem. And I'm not so sure that it really slowed down people on my team, because a lot of the times when we pair, we're working on something that's completely new to both of us. So it's more like a brainstorming session. And it also definitely helps with my confidence when I'm able to suggest a solution and it ends up being correct. Additionally, I've gotten to work on this really new and exciting project that the company is taking on. I've gotten to sit in and contribute to structural designs and work with services like Kafka. And I didn't even know what Kafka was when I first started. But in just a few months, I was writing and consuming my own Kafka streams. If you're not familiar with Kafka, it's a stream processing platform where a producer produces events and a consumer consumes those events or messages. We use it for communication between different services instead of a REST API. Another chance that I received was to get to work on the diagram for the new services that we're creating. We're deconstructing our existing monolith, and a lot of the specifications were not visual. So in my free time, I started combing through our documentation and I made a visual representation of the workflow of the new ecosystem. It definitely took some trial and error to get to a place where it logically made sense and was easy to understand. But by taking on that task, I gained so much knowledge about how our services interact with each other. I answered questions that I didn't even know that I had. And now I can confidently point my coworkers to the right place without second guessing myself. A few months ago, we got an intern. I originally held off on volunteering to mentor him because I figured I'm not too far off from where he is skill and experience wise. But my manager was really adamant that I had things that I could teach him. And working with him for a few weeks was great. It really tested my knowledge of the code base and just basic principles in general. He would ask me a question, I would answer it to the best of my ability while second guessing myself, and then later I would look up the answer just to see if I had completely misled him or something. But I never did. So that was concrete proof that I was truly growing and learning. I've been pretty lucky that I haven't had to deal with imposter syndrome since getting employed, and I think that has a lot to do with how supportive my manager is and how positive my team is. But in those moments, I did definitely doubt my own expertise. So it was really nice to see that I did know what I was talking about. I've even gotten to be a part of our interview process. And one thing that made this company really stand out against the other companies that I had interviewed for was the overall vibe of the interviews. I was asked coding and technical questions. That all was totally the same. But there was just an overwhelming sense of positivity and calmness to each round. After my first interview with my now manager, I knew that there was something really special about this team just based on the way that he conducted the interview. So once I was a part of the team, it was so amazing to get to contribute to something that I had such a positive experience with. We were only hiring for senior roles, so every interview that I was present for was for someone way above my current level. However, the team didn't hold that against me, and obviously I wasn't leading these technical interviews or anything. But being able to observe how so many different people answer the same question and ask them any questions that I had, and then have my opinion be considered when it came to hiring them, felt amazing. And some of the questions that we asked were even ones that I was asked during my interview and I had struggled with. So it was a really great learning opportunity to see someone with more experience than me solve those problems. And I can't even imagine getting this type of perspective from any of the other companies that I had interviewed with. Now, recently, we've started something called an on-call rotation, where every day someone is responsible for handling any alert that comes through our monitoring system. This basically means that if anyone using our platform experiences a timeout or an error, we'll get an alert with that error stack trace. I was so nervous when this was first introduced. I was not comfortable or confident in my knowledge of the entire app because the codebase is just so huge. There's so much that I've never even interacted with. I was afraid to be the person getting the notifications if we had a DDoS attack or if someone's payments didn't go through. But thankfully, even these worst case scenarios have been pretty easy to manage. And it's pretty fun to go through the stack traces and play detective, figure out what went wrong, who's affecting it, what can I do about it. So even though most of the alerts are just timeouts and simple things, the few times that something really weird has happened, I just messaged my manager or someone who has a lot of knowledge about that specific thing, and they helped me take care of it. So it really wasn't a big deal at all. It's definitely not something that I'm afraid of anymore, and it's just a normal part of my week. One thing that my manager and I talk a lot about is my career path. And that's not something that I'm even 100% set on. I don't know if I want to write code for my whole career or maybe move into something more conceptual where I'm making big picture decisions. But it's so exciting because I feel like I have so many different options in front of me. In the upcoming year, I hope to get more chances to work on architectural decisions. And I know that that's not something that most people in my position would get a chance to do. And for that, I feel so grateful that I'm working at the perfect size company right when things are in flux. And throughout this video, I've definitely said the word opportunity a lot, but that's because it's really the only way to describe it. I am getting so many opportunities to work on amazing things and have my voice and opinion be heard, all while learning from really talented and smart individuals. I'm already light years ahead of where I was just a year ago, so it's really exciting to think about where I could be next year. And that was just a little look at everything that I got to do over the past year. There were so many times when I was job searching where this all felt like such a distant dream. And I couldn't even imagine being here today, feeling so proud and fulfilled, getting to work on so many cool things. But I worked really hard to get here, and I'm going to continue to work really hard so that I can get somewhere even better. I hope this gave you some insight, some clarity, or was just fun to listen to. Not all jobs are created equal, and I think my company is definitely abnormal in the opportunities and atmosphere that it has created. But I'm so thankful for that, and I'm just trying to take full advantage of all the neat things that I get to do. So I know today was a little different, and I hope that was okay. We'll get back to our normal LeetCode stuff in the next video. Remember, if there's any algorithm, pattern, or problem on LeetCode that you want to go over, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and from me to you, have a great day. Maybe I'll let that car alarm go off before I start. Okay. And for that, I feel so grateful that I'm working at like the perfect size company right when things are kind of in flux. That was so rude.